Gen V Season 1 is complete, and the world of the boys will never be the same. That's how you do a spin-off show, or just a show in general. Something for some of the other franchises right now to take note. I'll mention it when I cover Invincible as well, but I think shows like The Boys and Invincible are really undercutting, and therefore hurting Marvel and DC, because they can go places that the mainstream brands cannot, particularly because they're owned Marvel by Disney. Warner Brothers is free to go a little darker, but for some reason, they want to go a little brighter to be more like Marvel. It's interesting because in the comic book space, indie, more adult takes on superheroes didn't really undercut the mainstream comics. That was the movie space, which took the control away from the comic book companies themselves, because the IP became too valuable. But for some reason in the movie TV space, maybe because it's fracturing, but I think that The Boys and Invincible are so adult and really able to offer such sophisticated commentary that Marvel and DC start to feel a little left behind, that you can feel them pulling their punches. And I speculated in a recent live stream that this might be to Deadpool's advantage, because Deadpool, of course, is going to stay rated R, is very meta, and is, Ryan Reynolds is allowed to have a little more freedom because he makes so much money. But let's see. I mean, I hope that maybe once they see how well Deadpool does, maybe Marvel and DC will start to learn that lesson. Joker, also much more adult and sophisticated, made $1 billion. Why did Aquaman make $1 billion? James Wan doesn't get enough credit. All right, so anyway, in this breakdown, we're going to go over all the big reveals in the Gen V season finale. So many. The power-ups and downs for several characters. Marie, it was beautiful to see. And of course, the questions that remain for The Boys Season 4 and Gen V Season 2. Oh, again, that's how you do it. And it wasn't all done in end credit scenes. It was done throughout the episode. And the episode was still exciting, also all on its own. And only about half an hour, by the way. But boy, it was a beauty. So as you might recall, at the beginning of this season for Gen V, I asked where the supervillains were in this world of The Boys, because up until now, it's really been Vought as the real enemy. And you particularly feel the lack of supervillains when you kind of do an X-Men setup, because of course the X-Men are always going up against Magneto and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. So I was really feeling a lack of villains here. But whew, they showed up in the season finale, as well as the heroes. That was nice to see. So yes, some really strong X-Men vibes, sure enough, as our group of friends split down the middle to some degree. Well, it's a little uneven. It got evened up big time by Homelander, but split into heroes and villains. By the way, as for those students who were in the woods, while we all, of course, felt real bad for them, once they were let out, I mean, they had obviously gone through some stuff, but they didn't seem that conflicted, and Kate hadn't taken away their emotions, their morality. So maybe Vought was right to put those kids in the woods after all. But back to our divided friends. As I said, Homelander, he came in here and tipped the balance. He ended up being the tiebreaker because it seemed like the two friend groups were just going to wipe each other out. But then Homelander came in, and I think it was it was a surprise. I was genuinely surprised. I don't like the way it played out, but let's discuss. So yes, 2 major cameos in the season finale. We had a couple of smaller, fun cameos up until now, but we didn't just get Homelander, but in the post-credit scene, we had a very quick shot of Butcher, who seems just fine. That one guy didn't seem to be bothered that his private parts blew up, and Butcher, even though he's staring death down the straightaway, he seems okay too. But whatever, it was nice to see him. And Butcher was clearly sent by Mallory at the end of episode 7 to investigate what was going on at Godolphin U and the woods, once Mallory had been made aware of it by Dean Shetty, who really does seem to be dead. Throwing Butcher into the mix is most likely to allow his group to learn about the virus and what was really going on at Godolphin, because of course the Vought machine is up again and lying to the public. It's really a lying machine, so it's doing what it's supposed to. But yeah, Vought News was all over this, and they were telling the lies. All right, so this is the one thing that I really disliked about the episode. There's one other little thing that I had a slight problem with. I loved everything else. But I didn't like the change in Homelander, who shows up and goes full Ubermensch. And as I said recently, he's really a lot of the Ron DeSantis facial movements. You know, people have been making that comparison online, and I think it might have stuck, which pulls this a little bit too much into reality and politics to make it still, I think, pure escapism. But anyway, yeah, he went full Ubermensch, turning on Marie for attacking her own kind, aka Kate, who of course had gone supervillain. So not only does Homelander shift the balance of power in favor of the villains, but then we find out that he has 2 white blonde students named the new Guardians of Godolkin, right? With the actual original Guardians of Godolkin, now a foursome, which includes the original 2 black students and an Asian gender fluid student who have now had the murderous campus rampage pinned on them. Well, he's done away with them. And, you know, obviously one of the cliffhangers is, where are they? And my guess is the Elmira Adult Rehabilitation Center, which had been teased in Gen V episode 1. Why else tease it if you're not going to put somebody there? So where do you think they are? We're going to talk about that. Now, but I think the question I want to ask right now is, are they just going to sit in that room without a door? It's got a door somewhere. How'd they get in it? That room wasn't built around them, although maybe there's a teleporting soup. Oh, I like that. Oh, that's a great use of teleportation. I like that a lot, to lock people in rooms. It's much harder to escape if there's nothing to get open. I like that. All right, but anyway, are they just going to sit there? Are they going to be parked there until Gen V Season 2? I think very unlikely, because the 7 needs new members stat right away. Not just because they're down to 3, but as a distraction from all this drama. Already the Vought game plan at the end of this episode with that very amusing conference room, those conference room scenes, looking at headshots. I thought that was great. Will Homelander get his fellow Ubermensch into the 7 with him, or will he use them in a different capacity? I could see them being helpful either way. But whichever way Homelander, I'm sure they're on Team Homelander now. So whichever way he decides to use them, you can't continue Kate and Sam's story without also continuing Marie, Andre, Jordan, and Emma's story. So I think they're all going to be part, I mean, maybe not necessarily a large part, but I think they will factor into The Boys Season 4, particularly because The Boys needs more characters, because they got rid of so many or benched so many or saved them for later by the time Season 3 was over. Also, I like this a lot. There's been a lot of talk about who will be the first black woman in the 7. And Marie, of course, at the beginning of this, even I think when Homelander showed up, I think that part of her still had that dream. So it makes it particularly sad that they turned on her. But she wanted to be the first black woman in the 7. But what if it ends up being her sister? Oh, I love that, because Vought CEO Ashley Barrett uses that as a carrot to try and get Marie to help save everybody when she says, I can get you access to your sister right now. And as some of you pointed out, why would Marie's parents only give Compound V to one of their children, especially because her dad was such a big fan of the 7? Wouldn't they want to double their chances to at least have 1 or maybe 2 supers in the family? So I like that idea. I like it a lot. And maybe her sister won't know what's going on, and her sister could be like the new Starlight of the 7, because Starlight, of course, said, peace out, effers, and left last season, and fully went to join the boys' team. So you need another character like that. You need that kind of rebellious energy on the team, and I think that Marie's sister would be a great candidate. And they held off casting her, so considering I think that Gen V has slowly gotten an audience, I think they can get a really great actress to take on that role. It's going to be great. Although this cast is already stellar. So back to Homelander. In my opinion, what made Homelander such an interesting character for 3 seasons of The Boys was his nuance. I mean, sure, he's a psychopath, but part of that is how he was raised. That's very much the recipe for creating a psychopath. And then again on this show, he's always pulled back at the last minute. You've always been able to count. That's why I think he and Butcher have the kind of relationship that they do, that you can kind of count on Homelander when the chips are really down to step up. I mean, he's obviously done irredeemable things, but he's done good things too. He, when it counted, and saved the good guys. So that's why he's like in a gray area, which makes him, again, a nuanced, interesting character. And he showed that there is a soul in there somewhere. Remember that scene where he was talking to himself in the mirror? I mean, that's supposed to be Homelander, but we didn't see any of that here. And again, I think that's what's made him so interesting for so many seasons. Now, of course, at the end of The Boys season 3, he straight up lasered that dude, which was discussed on Gen V about how they don't really know how he can get past that. But I think when it happened, many of us felt that was the superhero version of Trump saying he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. And we thought the show was going to explore that. But now, on that note, there's been a conservative fan base that's really rallied behind Homelander in real life. And perhaps the creatives on The Boys, and I don't think conservative is the right word. I'm talking like MAGA, because the Republican Party itself is splintered these days. But I think that the creatives on The Boys might have gotten tired or worried or both about blurring the line with Homelander, about making him a character that was not entirely bad. So I suspect, based on this ending, because it was just so different. But I mean, it is different writers maybe, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a full takedown of the character in every way possible in season 4. I've heard rumblings that make me feel that season 4 will be the end of Homelander. I hope he gets a good, storyline to see him out. Many of you felt he should have been killed off in season 3. That was the time to do it, creatively speaking. But from a business perspective, he was just too popular. He's still very popular. He's by far and away the signature character for this whole franchise. Although I think Gen V might have changed that a little bit, which is exciting, because the series has to be able to last past Homelander. And for all of you who are worried about whether or not that's possible, well, let's talk scenarios. And one of them, of course, is to age up Ryan. I mean, we're moving into the next generation anyway, and Ryan is not only a mini Homelander, but he's also been heavily influenced by Butcher. So as both those characters maybe get ready to move on, Homelander being maybe killed off or something happening, and Butcher, of course, having his ticket punched by V24 already, maybe he's not going to make it back from that. Ryan would be a really interesting combination of the two moving forward. That's very comic booky. And this is a comic book based show. Suck Ryan into a different universe, how they aged up Superman's son, right? Have him run into a super who can accelerate pockets of time. Whatever, there are so many ways you can do it. Just bring him up to the age range of the Gen V cast. After all, Patrick Schwarzenegger's Golden Boy, I didn't see this coming. And this just shows it's a commentary on society, but a lot of fans really got behind Golden Boy, even with his reduced screen time, very reduced screen time. And he was really a take on Homelander as well. That is just a very popular character type, it seems. So if you're going to get rid of Homelander, and you already got rid of Golden Boy twice now, when they, when Sam, had him taken out of his mind, the only option is to age up Ryan. So point is, though, that The Boys without Homelander is doable. So I see character assassination in Homelander's future. The nuance sucked out. I worry about it because I like the character's nuance. I thought that was really great. Because he's basically just going to turn into Stormfront, which would negate that fantastic storyline. Where remember, he just couldn't make himself be like her. He just couldn't do it. It was too far. How do you feel about Homelander? Do you believe the character has nuance? Do you think that's what's made him interesting up until this point? Or have you always seen him in black and white? I know some of you disagree on this in some of the comments and the discussions we've had, so I'm curious what your thoughts are and how you thought when you saw a Homelander who didn't have any nuance. What do you think of the character in that light? And also, can a sonic whistle work on Homelander? Because we learned that seemingly all soups can be stopped by a sonic whistle that only they can hear. A fascinating development and a badly needed edge for humans, although why did they have never used it before this? But clearly, soups are going bad. We're getting more super villains. So the humans need that. Vought certainly needs it. And also, maybe we can get a super on the scene with sonic powers. That would certainly be something the good guys could use because they seem a little underpowered in comparison. Side note, speaking of good guys and bad guys, was Social Media Jeff a good guy or a bad guy? Because it's revealed that he was undercover and easily took out a suit before Kate got a hold of him and made him kill himself with that same technology. Now, he had a little bit of edge to him, but this is an edgy show. So it doesn't necessarily, I mean, Butcher has a ton of edge. It doesn't necessarily mean that social media Jeff was a bad guy. So he could have been working for Vought, but why would Vought have someone undercover in their own establishment, right? So maybe he was working for Mallory, maybe he was working for Victoria Newman, some other government agency, or an entirely new player on the board. But that's definitely a breadcrumb that was dropped for the future. All right, now let's talk power-ups. The big headline by far is Marie Moreau, who really leveled up this episode. We knew she could do it, and boy, did she. Last episode, of course, we learned that Newman actually has the exact same power set, so it's interesting to see duplicate power sets, and she just happens to like popping heads. She's like, that's just really my jam. But Marie, oh, what a smorgasbord of use of these powers. She gave someone a heart attack. She was able to see translucent son Maverick by looking for the blood pumping through his body. That was fantastic. That, of course, came off of Newman telling her to be able to look in people's blood for compound V, but she could find anything in someone's blood. Oh, it's a great power set. And then she used all the blood in the dead bodies around her, because she's a good guy, so they weren't using it anymore, to create a hail of projectiles. I loved it when director Adam Burke said he was putting that in his next movie. I thought that was a great, so the boys, so well done. And then, the piece de resistance, mwah, a twist on Newman's head popping, and that's when Marie popped one of Kate's arms before Kate could touch and therefore control Jordan, showing how much Marie and Jordan love each other too. Aw, I like that relationship. But absolutely brilliant. Not just, again, as a twist on Newman. You can pop anything, although Marie already proved that. But it's a devastating blow to Kate, who needs to touch someone to control them, and that creates a serious setback because she's only got one hand left. Does it need to be the hand, right? Does just physical contact do the trick? Kate is going to have to obviously find out, and if she can just do it physically, well, I think the show's going to have a lot of fun with how she could do that. And speaking of Kate, now that she's off her meds, I love the blood ring around her eyes. That was a great villain look. But she's more powerful than ever, able to control more people for longer. But to me, the most interesting development for her was that she was able to take away Sam's emotions at his request. Now, we knew that she was controlling his brother Luke to make him not think about Sam. But this is a new level, and this is where it gets interesting. Because, well, Sam, he said take away his emotions because he didn't want to feel anymore. His emotions were finally too much for him, arguing with Emma, but also his brother in his head. He was remembering his brother. His brother was kind of like doing a Jiminy Cricket on him, and Sam just wanted to shut that all out. But when you take away someone's emotions, that's the hallmark of a psychopath. No emotion, no empathy. So Kate can literally turn people, and therefore Soups, into psychopaths. So she not only becomes a leader in the villain world of the boys, but a villain creator. Oh, that's great. That's going to be really, really interesting. I think Homelander's going to have a lot of use for her. Back to the good guys. Emma discovers that maybe emotion can control her size, not just eating. But so the question is, did she get small because she felt small? That would be my guess. But she was pretty emotional before. In fact, she was very emotional. So I don't know why that's never come up before. And then, of course, the reveal that Polarity's powers, the adult Polarity, they have been eroding his brain all this time, which caused his seizure/stroke from last episode. So not only can he no longer use his powers, but if his son Andre continues to use the same powers that he inherited, this will be his future. This will be his fate. Now, this is the other thing I had a slight problem with, because there were no hints of this in earlier episodes, that Andre's powers were giving him a problem. I mean, when the doctor asked, I love Vought's medical team. Obviously, mostly used for bad, but it was interesting to think they had their own medical team. But he's like, do your powers ever make you feel weird? And Andre was like, yeah, they do. And I was like, I've never seen that, and I've been spending a lot of time with Andre. I mean, I guess that's why he's never used them very much. You remember to be complaining about that, saying, why doesn't Andre ever use his powers? Well, apparently they gave him a headache. But I wish they'd set that up better. I mean, maybe they felt it would have given the reveal away, but I think I would have liked to have just a little bit more of a hint. But it is a cool reveal, especially because that's something else that's been missing from the world of the boys, that sometimes superpowers can be a curse. For the most part, it seemed, just the problem was who you gave them to, which was discussed. The problem isn't the powers, but the people, but just humanity, right? Just superpowers excels that. But now they're going to I think, maybe cover it on both fronts. But even knowing the damage that his powers caused, Polarity Sr., who maybe already even knew this because he knew about the woods, right? Seems Polarity Sr. makes a lot of compromises to try and, what he feels, give the best life to his son possible. And on that note, he wants his son to keep on being the new Polarity, even though they know that this problem will be caused. I'm excited to see Andre in the Polarity suit, though. I mean, I feel bad. I wish it wouldn't cause... I didn't like the fact that it went from him having no problems using his powers to him having like a huge headache and getting all shaky. Because I'm like, I want to see him use his powers. Are you really not going to let us have that? And by the way, although I loved it when he used his powers this episode, because kudos to him and multiple members of the cast for really selling their powers this episode with their acting. And I'm sure the VFX team appreciated the assist, that it didn't just rely on them, that, as I said, acting carried a lot of those scenes. It was great to watch. It was very fun. I was like, I believe he is manipulating that helicopter. Finally, though, let's talk about burning questions for The Boys Season 4 and Gen V Season 2. And I believe this is all just one story, really. It's just maybe going to shift who's the primary focus, but I think this became a universe with two fronts. All right, so again, will any Gen V characters go right to the 7? There's also contestants from that reality show, by the way, from Season 3, but I think they're going to focus on Gen V characters because they're just so popular. You know, fans like this show. And as I said, there's only 3 members left on the 7. Homelander, The Deep, and A-Train. Because remember, A-Train got that heart transplant, so he's back in the game. And it seems that Homelander is going to want to keep the team firmly on his side and will continue to have a say in new members, especially because he got rid of Stan Edgar as well, as you might recall, making that deal with Victoria Newman. So Homelander has alliances with Victoria Newman. He got her the VP spot because he controls the Deep, and he got the Deep to kill the other VP candidate. So Homelander's shoring up a pretty decent position here, actually, as well. Now, speaking of Victoria Newman, what's she going to do with that virus that she acquired in the second to last episode? Will she use it to get in good with Homelander? She's certainly not going to destroy it. That's what they call an ace up your sleeve in the business. Or will she have it as an insurance policy against Homelander? But since she's a soup herself and the virus is so contagious, she can't really release it, can she? She might try to re-engineer it, but as we know from real life, I do believe this is somewhat a commentary on COVID because The Boys is that type of show, viruses get out of labs even when you have the best intentions. Also, there's that body, that infected body back at the woods that they saw this episode. Vought is probably going to get their hands on that, so Vought will certainly now be aware of the virus and probably have it themselves. So I think that's going to be a big part of The Boys Season 4, and I wonder if that'll be what ultimately takes out Homelander. Because we've been wondering what could possibly take him out. Then, as I said, where are the real Guardians of Godolkin being held? Elmira? With Mallory and Butcher? Do they somehow still have them? The government? As I said, I think it's the Elmira facility because that must be why they teased it. And since Homelander took them down on Vought property, Vought would have gotten to them first. But what would Vought want with them, right? Especially since they vilified them in the news. Because, you know, that facility seems real nice. Certainly nicer than any other Vought facilities, holding facilities that we've seen. So that's, you know, we've seen the mental institution, we've seen the orphanage. Why is this one so nice? That's the only thing that gives me pause that maybe it's not Elmira. It's a great cliffhanger. And then finally, Marie's sister, the ultimate cliffhanger. Where is she? Was she actually ever even adopted? Or did Vought do something with her, right? Does she have powers? Is she good or bad? Could she help save Marie, or could she make Marie's situation even worse? Oh, I'm very excited about this. So that's where we are at the end of Gen V, a fantastic show that has done a great job of expanding the Boys cinematic universe. I think it wasn't really huge when it started. I saw it start to trend on social media on Thursday nights towards the end, and I think hopefully people will, once they realize they need to watch the show to really get The Boys Season 4, people will jump on there, and especially once it's available to binge. And so I think The Boys Season 4 and Gen V Season 2 could both be big. So what did you think of Gen V now that Season 1 is done? And what are your thoughts and hopes and fears for The Boys Season 4 and Gen V Season 2? And who are your favorite characters? I really like Marie Moreau. Kudos to both her, the two actors from Sabrina. They kind of got wasted on Sabrina towards the end. And I'm so happy that they have this amazing new opportunity. All right, so share your, although I don't know, I'm very disappointed in Sam. Emma became a little less cool, I think, as the show went on. I think Kate got extremely interesting, and I'm sure we haven't seen the last of Patrick Schwarzenegger. I'm sure he'll burrow his way back into Sam's mind for sure, especially because the character turned out to be so popular. And Patrick Schwarzenegger, he ain't got nothing else to do, so I'm sure he'd be happy to come back. And of course, I love Jordan Lee. They kind of lost sight of Jordan Lee towards the end there, but I'd love to know what's next for them as well. All right, so share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.